I live in California, so I don't hear much about teachers using physical violence against children. But it absolutely does happen today in America. So I made a video about paddling.
One parent is baffled after his son was paddled at school for allegedly expressing his political thoughts on the chalkboard.
That student, a Childersburg middle school student, reprimanded for writing the name Trump on the chalkboard.
Two big things about this clip. One, he said paddled. The kid was paddled, physically, violently beaten with a heavy wooden object. Two, this is right after Trump got elected. They're paddling kids in late 2016. Like, paddling is not from the 1950s. They paddle kids today. The other thing is just, it takes so little to get paddled. Like, he wrote Trump on the chalkboard. Later in the clip, the school claims they had a policy that people were sensitive about the election, so the kids weren't supposed to be political. And it seems like anti-free speech, as the parent says. And also, the parent said like they weren't notified of the policy or anything, so it just seemed like made up bullshit. And also, it's a terrible policy. Like, you can't have political speech? What? And I think it's a biased policy. Like, did they have the same policy when Obama won? Like, same school district? I doubt it. Would they really have paddled a kid for writing Obama on the chalkboard? The teachers would have just been like, hope and change, yay. They're probably so biased.
Ran my mouth a lot. Didn't really like getting told what to do. But if I had the choice to get paddling, I'd usually choose paddling just to get it over with, because I didn't want to spend time in school suspension, ISS, or because my parents has always told me, don't ever choose suspension. Because you can't miss school. You don't need to miss school.
So he sort of had a choice about paddling. Like, he could have been suspended instead. But his parents told him that he had to take the paddling because if he's suspended, he'll miss classes and get worse grades, possibly fail. They didn't want to let him do that, so his parents made him get paddled, even if the school was technically offering a choice. And then in the next clip, we're going to find out what happened to this guy after he was paddled. About 10 minutes after a paddling, he blacked out.
Woke up on the floor. I felt something in my mouth, and I hold my hand out, just see what it is, and I start spitting out teeth, like shards of my teeth. I've done bit through both sides of my tongue. I've got one tooth already missing, and my jaw's broke.
With the broken jaw, he spent 6 weeks missing school for medical reasons and missed a bunch of tests, and they failed him for it and made him repeat all of the whole school year because their paddling injured him and made him miss school. He'll explain in the next section.
They never gave me the opportunity to retake them, so it failed me for that year. When I had to go back to the 8th grade at the same school, I just didn't go to school much, and I failed again until finally I was just like, there's no sense in me staying, doing this.
So to summarize, they physically abused him, broke his jaw, he was out with a serious medical problem, so he missed some tests, so they failed him, and made him repeat 8th grade. And it was a horrible social situation, being with like the kids a year younger than him and the same teachers. So he didn't have a good time, so they failed him again. So he gave up on school and just didn't graduate. Like, they just alienated him from the school system, starting with their physical abuse. And as a reminder, paddling still happens today. This is a newspaper clip from 1981. The article is in favor of paddling. They call paddles mother's helper. The article says, this teaching aid may strike inhabitants of less muscular states than Texas as backward, benighted, and even cruel. It is not. It is an instrument of civilization. So I found that disturbing.
I would never want to intimidate students, but there again, if you show them the paddle, then, they know, oh, he does have one.
This guy is so dishonest. He says he would never want to intimidate students, but he shows them the paddle and it intimidates them, and he knows it intimidates them. So he's intentionally doing actions that intimidate students, while saying he'd never want to intimidate students. Such a liar, and that's a principle.
To appease parents and legislators who support a ban, in 2011, the Texas legislature required all school districts to give parents the ability to opt out.
Unfortunately, the opt-out law hasn't helped much.
He dragged me out there, he put me on the wall. He made me face the wall.
Last year, when Elijah Smith was 5 years old, his kindergarten teacher paddled him with a wooden board for sticking his tongue out at another teacher. Elijah's mother had signed an opt-out form.
It's so petty. He stuck his tongue out. He was 5 years old, and they hit him with a wooden board. It's not like he did something that stands out as especially bad behavior. Not even a little bit. He stuck his tongue out. And he's 5, and they're just hitting him with a wooden board. And the parent had opted out, and they do it anyways.
And circled it, because that's how much I disagree with it.
Do they check the opt-out forms before they abuse 5-year-olds? Some teachers don't. They're just like, no, this is urgent. He stuck his tongue out at one of the other teachers. That was disrespect for authority. We're going to have to teach him to respect us by hitting him with a board. And then he'll respect us. That's not fear, that's respect. That's not intimidation, it'll be respect. Something like that. It's ridiculous.
But an attorney at the municipal court discouraged the family from taking legal action. Even with an opt-out form in place, Texas educators have fairly strong immunity in corporal punishment cases, as long as there's no evidence of excessive force or negligence.
And they can't even sue. What good is the law that you can opt out if they just hit your kid anyways? And then you can't even sue them. That's so dumb. It's not just dumb, children are being exposed to violence. This hurts people. It's a big deal. The kid talked about how he had nightmares about it.
There's not a lot of recourse for parents, other than if it was not administered in the correct manner.
If you leave bruises on a kid, that's bad. But if you just leave psychological bruises, that's good?
Dr. Jaroska says if parents ever want corporal punishment to go away, it will. But that doesn't seem to be happening anytime soon.
I agree with the broad point. If enough parents really clearly did not want corporal punishment, it would stop. And that damns quite a lot of parents. However, there are a lot of parents who don't want their kid abused, and their kid gets abused anyways. There are parents who don't want it, and their kid gets hit anyways. So that's a terrible problem. They should really seriously figure out how to not use physical violence against the children whose parents don't want it. Making the opt-out actually work would be a good step. I think if you hit a child whose parent opted out, that's assault. That should be a crime. And if that was actually a crime, then the problem would fix itself. People would actually figure out how to check the opt-out forms. If you're interested in reason and what it means and how it applies to the world, not just for paddling, but many other topics, check out my websites at elliotemple.com. The link is in the description.